The sound of Dan's laughing reverberated under Alex's little ear, a seismic event that was instantly recognizable to the infant's world. Dan grinned as he gently attempted to peel the 6-month-old child from where he was lying, plastered on his father's naked chest. "He's like a little barnacle today, Anna," Dan said. Instantaneously, Alex, who was always comfortable while he was in his mother's arms or exploring his playmat, let out a high-pitched, anguished cry that immediately stopped the moment his cheek met Dan's flesh once again. He had a surprising amount of power in his little fingers as they gripped Dan's t-shirt. Anna mumbled, "It's not just today, Dan," as she curled her forehead in concentration. "It's been a few weeks." In the event that he is not there, he yells. Unless he is able to maintain his hand on you, he will not be able to breastfeed effectively. When he is on you, he even sleeps more deeply than usual. What had begun as a quirk that brought joy to their hearts, "Daddy's boy," they had joked, had developed into a yearning that was relentless and unsettling. Alex was not only looking for solace, rather, he seemed to be linked to Dan's pulse and his warmth, with an intensity that was at times urgent and even frenzied. Their kind and mild-mannered physician, Dr. Evans, who had silver hair, listened attentively. After Anna had explained the precision of Alex's obsession, his initial grin began to fade. She described the frightened sobs that Alex would make when they were separated, the manner that Alex would nuzzle and push his ear directly against Dan's sternum, and the rejection of all other comforts. "He listens," Anna replied, her tone of voice tense. "Like he's waiting for something." There was a noticeable loss of color on Dr. Evans's face. Not only did he seem astonished, but he also appeared to be quite troubled. "Mr. Thorne," he said, his voice suddenly sharp and demanding, "does your chest ever feel like it's getting tight from time to time? Warmth that is not typical? Is there a chronic cough that you have disregarded?" Dan gave a shrug. "Are you experiencing any heartburn as of late? The strain of one's job? It's nothing big." Dr. Evans remarked that nothing major needs immediate investigation while simultaneously grabbing his phone. "It's not Alex. It is you. I'm going to make a call to St. Jude's Cardiology in advance. It is time to go." Dan and Anna hurried to the hospital, both of them very perplexed and terrified. As soon as Dr. Evans came, with the intention of having an urgent conversation with a cardiologist named Dr. Sharma, the mood went from being regular to being heated. Dan was rushed into a room designated for examination. EKG, basic blood work, and chest X-ray were the standard diagnostics that were performed. While looking at the EKG reading, Dr. Sharma scowled. A very little arrhythmia. Really understated. Absolutely insignificant. On the other hand, Dr. Evans teetered about, his face gloomy. "Carry out a test for troponin, right now, and an exhaustive toxicological examination, a wide range of sound. The results of the troponin test, which measures a protein that is produced when the heart muscle is damaged, were found to be increased. Not very high, but certainly out of the ordinary for a person who seems to be in good health, age 35. Dr. Sharma seemed to be perplexed. There is no way that this fits the characteristics of a conventional heart attack. The first scans did not reveal any obvious obstructions. Then, when doing a more thorough medical examination, Dr. Evans saw something that other people would overlook. In the bright fluorescent lights, when Dan moved, a faint pattern appeared on the flesh of his lower chest, just below the sternum. This pattern was visible from the outside. This was not a rash, but rather a mottling that was virtually undetectable. It was a faint, uneven pattern of slightly darker and lighter areas of skin, similar to ghostly fingerprints that were hidden under the surface. It was really simple to ignore, particularly on Dan's skin, which had a very faint tan. A chill went through Dr. Evans's veins. When he was on his toxicology rotation many years ago, he recalled a case study that was somewhat unknown. There was a magnifying dermatoscope that he grabbed. When it was pressed against Dan's skin, the faint pattern became something chillingly distinct. Minute, concentric rings emerging from multiple puncture spots that were nearly imperceptible. It seemed as if tiny needles had penetrated the skin. They hid themselves within the hair follicles and the slight skin flaws that were present. "Get a high-res dermal scan of this area." The voice of Dr. Evans was strained as he yelled. "And rerun the tox screen specifically looking for aconitine derivatives and biological neurotoxins." His horrified assumption was validated by the findings. Dan's body had traces of a powerful cardiotoxin that had a gradual onset of action. This cardiotoxin was most likely obtained from an extremely uncommon and engineered aconite plant. Transdermal absorption of the poison was taking place, most likely as a result of Dan coming into touch with something he wore or used on a regular basis. It was not intended to kill in a short amount of time. Rather, it was intended to simulate natural heart failure over the course of many months, inflicting progressive and subtle damage that may also be readily misdiagnosed. With his neonatal sensitivities to minute chemical changes, fluctuations in body temperature, and infrasound vibrations from an increasingly agitated heart, Alex had been shouting a quiet warning. He was hypersensitive to all of these things. The discordant beat, the subtle molecular trace of poison coming from his father's skin, and the wrongness that adult senses and tests originally missed were all things that he was able to detect. The act of clinging to Dan's breast was not an expression of devotion. Rather, it was an act of biological surveillance with the intention of monitoring the origin of the threat that was threatening his lifeblood. No hesitation was shown by Dr. Evans. The telephone was removed from the wall by him. "Hello, my name is Dr. Evans and my ID is 7230. As soon as possible, I need the presence of forensic toxicology and law enforcement at St. Jude's Cardiology Room 4. An instance of purposeful delayed poisoning by the application of a cutaneous toxin might have occurred. People who have frequent and close contact with the victim are likely to be considered suspects." When he turned to face Thorns, who was shocked, his face was pale. "Mr. and Mrs. Thorne, your son was not being too possessive of you. A biological alarm system was being triggered by him. Dan, you have been poisoned by at least one person. Slowly, in fact, to a deliberate degree. Alex was aware of it." The room was suddenly filled with silence. Anna was clinging to Dan with tears flowing down her face as the horrifying truth was revealed. Dan glanced at his kid, who was now sleeping. He was fatigued after his vigil, and he was in Anna's arms. The innocent and persistent hold that seemed to be odd had really been a lifeline that had been thrown by need. Alex's primal bond had not only sensed the invisible killer, but it had also exposed it, thereby saving his father's life. The police sirens wailed in the background, highlighting the horrible reality that Alex had discovered at that moment. The search for the person who had poisoned the person and the object that contained the poison had only started.